Happy Friday. Today we are chilling and taking recommendations. Chances are I do stream over the weekend. Maybe tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow. It's going to depend on whether or not if I'm just grinding or what. But we'll see. Huh. Yeah, so today I think we will just chill and got a couple ideas of things to watch. Actually, I just have one, and then I think we'll also go over these protocols that we arrived at from what we've been working on the past few days. But we could go in any direction. No limits to the day. We got a new GACT 2 hours ago. Giving that a sweet like. I wonder where GACT lives here. There's 2 cats? Oh my gosh. They're just living the life. Yo, how'd he get up in the tree? Wow. Pretty cool. All right, so I'm curious about this Chris Williamson video. There's 2 ways we could go about this. We could give it the quick summary, or we could actually just try to read through or watch through it. Like the parental attribution error, I'm not sure if we're gonna need to care about. Advice hyper responders. Maybe we need to embrace gratitude. Oh no, this is the. I don't know. We need to embrace our what? How to overcome procrastination. That's stuff that we need to look at soon. The input-output delusion. 7 keys for a strong. The shame of small fears. The Atlas complex. All right. I'm sorry, Chris. Just for the sake of time, we're gonna give it the summary. Okay, the parental attribution error. This concept highlights how people tend to attribute their flaws to their upbringing while taking sole credit for their strengths, urging for a more honest and balanced view of parental influence. Advice hyper responders. The video discusses how advice often exaggerates existing traits rather than correcting imbalances. People who least need certain advice tend to overdo it, while those who desperately need it remain unaffected, often because the advice confirms their existing fears or biases. That's a fair point. Embracing vulnerability. Chris argues that vulnerability is true strength, defining it as speaking your truth even when it's scary. He challenges the notion that emotional suppression is a sign of maturity, emphasizing that true connection and resilience comes from facing one's feelings. Hell yeah. How to overcome procrastination. Procrastination is presented not as a time management issue, but often as a fear-based self-protection strategy. The video suggests that people procrastinate to avoid the potential failure of trying, thereby guaranteeing a private failure instead of risking a public one. The antidote is surrender, lowering the stakes and being willing to look foolish. There is like a real true aspect to this. I think if you were to just characterize the issue of procrastination in this lens, you would overlook some of just like the underlying physiology and the whatever chemical imbalances might be at play and how that can affect procrastination. Also, this is the type of solution that requires a change, simply just requires a change in outlook. Whereas I think one way of going about advice for procrastination is talking about how you can slowly get out of the hole of procrastination. Like it's something that you have to work on over time, and making like incremental moves that make it easier each day for you to not procrastinate. I think that's part of the story. Okay, the input-output delusion. This section discusses the misconception that effort directly equates to desired outcomes, highlighting a potential disconnect between input and output. So I think I want to actually watch this part, because this is a huge issue that we need to talk about when we're looking at pursuing goals, goal framing. Would we talk about it in goal framing, or would we want to talk about it in this taking stock of progress? I think taking stock of progress. Well, so there's the expectation that you can make in this vein, and then there's the how you can evaluate what you've already done. So maybe we could start it up here in this setting the mindset, self-identity, volition, project management. Okay, we want to just put it in these general notes, I think. All right, let's go. Let's ride.
This is really cool. So I was speaking to Elliot Buick, who is a host of the Next Generation podcast, and I was trying to explain to him the difference between inputs, outputs, and outcomes. So this is the input-output delusion. I've got a sense that there are 3 levels of productivity: inputs, outputs, and outcomes. Most people stop at the first 2 and then wonder why nothing in their life actually changes. So inputs are effort applied. I sat at my desk for 8 hours. I spent 2 hours drafting an outreach message. I went to the gym 5 times this week.
Just to be clear, these are you're interpreting what you've done, what you've input. What, like I always try to get us thinking, like separating the thought that we have about what is true from like some idea of like what is actually true. So this is you're interpreting that you're putting in inputs.
Inputs feel noble. They prove that you're working hard, but effort without direction just burns calories. You can spend all day trying and still be no closer to the thing that you want.
Okay. These are okay. Effort without direction can lead to I don't know, non-positive outcomes. As
far as I can see, is one of the issues that came in the wake of Atomic Habits by James Clear. Phenomenal book, fantastic writer. But when he said, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, everybody started optimizing for inputs only. And I don't think this is what he meant. But everybody started optimizing just for inputs. I sat at my desk for 8 hours. I spent 2 hours drafting outreach messages. I went to the gym 5 times this week. Inputs are noble. Feel like you're working hard. They show everybody else that you're working hard. But they don't necessarily point you in the right direction. And you can spend all day trying and still be no closer to the thing that you want. So the next stage that people get to is outputs. So if inputs are effort applied, outputs are work done. So.
Okay, so this is tricky because, you're interpreting both of these. You interpret the effort applied. Okay, and then you'd also obviously interpret what you've done. But it's hard to really like separate these things.
I sent 50 emails, right? Rather than I sat at my desk for 8 hours. I published 4 blog posts as opposed to I spent hours drafting messages. I completed all my programmed workouts as opposed to I went to the gym 5 times this week. You could go to the gym.
So it's really just a level of abstraction higher.
Gym and not complete your workout. You could sit at your desk for 8 hours and not send 50 emails. So outputs feel even better because you can count them.
Higher. We can look at work at different levels of abstraction, often self-help / productivity tips, give suggestions for low abstraction tasks. For example, do this for X minutes, etc. However, without the clear connection between the higher abstraction goals, we can, I don't know, we just lose efficiency.
You can look at the spreadsheet and think, I'm being productive. Look at what I made. But outputs don't prove impact. You can send 50 emails and get no replies. You can publish 4 podcasts that don't move your audience. You can lift weights every day without changing your diet and see 0 results. It's motion, not momentum. So we move on to the third level, which is, I think, what people should be more focused on. These are outcomes. So inputs are effort applied, and outputs are work done. Outcomes are real-world results. So I closed 3 new clients. Not I sent 50 emails, and certainly not
So once again, this is just another interpretation of what you did, just at a higher level of abstraction that is now a little like more important. So when I say higher level of abstraction, you know, we could actually draw the parallel between this and like Jordan Peterson's talked about how there's just stories embedded in other stories, and there's more important stories that are like kind of at the top of the hierarchy of stories here, and you know, one of the highest stories you could be like, I'm trying to be a good person, or I'm doing what's right in some fundamental sense, and that might mean, you know, doing this thing for, you know, getting money for your family, and then, you know, it's actually like the going to work and stuff, and then there's actually like the doing your task at work. So like you've got these stories and they lead up to this larger thing. So it's important to have the overarching goal in mind, and the goal can be an identity. So that's another thing. A goal can be an identity. Or at least we can think about our goals as identities. It's like, this is something I'm working towards. It's something about me. So the idea here would be like, perhaps it's useful to have high abstraction goals as identities while setting clear low abstraction goals in order to act out and effectively earn that identity. I don't know, I'm just kind of swinging things. Yo, Darmanon, what's good? Yo, gang, what up? I think we're just we're chilling today. I think I'm seeing what Chris Williamson had for his lessons of 2025, and yeah, he brought up goals and stuff. So I thought to watch it, and it's just giving me thoughts. So I'm writing things down as per usual. Nice, looks interesting.
I sat at my desk for 8 hours. The new training plan added 20 pounds to my bench press. Not, I completed my programmed workouts, or I went to the gym 5 times this week. My latest article doubled our inbound leads, right? You get where I'm going. Outcomes measure change. They tell you whether your work actually did what it was supposed to do. And this is the line between looking busy, feeling productive, and being effective. Inputs, outputs, outcomes. Busy people count hours and actions. Effective people count impact. If you measure inputs, you'll get good at trying. If you measure outputs, you'll get good at producing. But if you measure outcomes, you'll get good at winning.
So like this is the only thing that I can really give constructive feedback on for Chris Williamson. Like I feel like he often tries to bottle the stuff up into to clear, nice sounding, I don't know, rule sets or just like very nice sounding. I don't know what would be the word for this. Nice sounding phrases and whatnot, but there's often ambiguity here, and like in this case, you know, it's kind of ambiguous as to what would be a input and output or a outcome. And I feel like it's closer to home to just talk about how in each of these cases we could think about how we interpret what we're doing, you know, what the deed that was done, and we can think about that at different levels of abstraction here. So now, granted, the reason why he probably does this is because it's effective for people remembering. But I think what I'm like concerned about is losing maybe the essence or the precision of what we would want to really get at here. Like, what is the tip? Like, how do you actually go about this in a more clear way, even if it doesn't have as much of a pull in terms of just the way it's structured. So
stop keeping score with time and activity and start asking the one fucking question after everything you do.
I don't mind this guy, but he's a bit too manosphere for me. Yeah, it's very this one's tricky because yeah, he's definitely manosphere adjacent, or I don't know, maybe he's even in it. I'm not sure. I don't spend too much time here, but I'm usually happy with how he conducts himself in interviews and his podcast and whatnot. I think he's pretty quiet politically, I think. Which is for me a little sus right now, but we could put that aside. But yeah, the one issue I see with a lot of people is you can't. It seems like people have a hard time creating a channel like this and not making it like about a specific gender. Like this is a, you know, I mean, perhaps you could spin that, you know, Chris Williamson, the channel is for everyone, and he does have a lot of women on the podcast. So, you know, I really do, I'm speaking out of my ass because I really don't know what his demo is. But I would want to try to maximize my demo by not being too close to the manosphere space. And there's a lot, yeah. Like he does, one of the things that also is something I just don't want to do is I think he spends a lot of time talking about dating and stuff like that, where it's, you know, for the sake of what we're doing here, I don't know if I really care about dating. I mean, maybe in part 3 we could talk about dating as like a topic for, I mean, you know what, we probably should talk about dating in some respect, but maybe not dating. It would be more just like social relations, and well, obviously we would talk about the benefits of having a partner and the benefits of having children and stuff like that. But I don't know if we would go into specific dating strategies. Yeah, we're not solving dating. But there's things we can look into, such as just, you know, usual empathy and social norms and stuff like that. Like we could go into, you know, abstract things, but it doesn't have to be necessarily about dating in the you know, 21st century or whatnot. So we'll see. We'll see if we can pull it off. We'll see if anyone even cares about a channel that isn't a little bit manosphere pilled. We'll give it a go.
This actually moved me closer to my goals. And if it didn't, it doesn't matter how long it took or how much you got done, it wasn't progress. I fucking loved this idea. Inputs, outputs, outcome.
Yeah, so okay, a lot of this is actually on the topic of taking stock of progress. And yeah, we just really need to consider whether the effort put in actually led to the not explicated, pre-disclosed, preset outcomes. As well as our current interpretation of what we would want to do. That's the other thing. It's hard to, you know, especially when you're dealing with especially when we're dealing with ambiguous / ill-defined goals. We may, we need to keep in mind that we may interpret a goal differently over time. Thus, we need to, I don't know. That's really it. We just need to keep that in mind. We need, that's kind of that's the idea of why we need to make things explicit in our identifying what to pursue. Making decisions. What do we say? Considering possibilities. Well, there is pursuing goals effectively. So, okay, determining where to go is a little more of a... Now, this should also be making things explicit. Okay. Even though we will talk about goal framing in the next section, we do still need to acknowledge how important it is to make our goals explicit for our own our own sake, such that we can understand where we are and where we want to go. Like, you know, helmet, what's good? You haven't truly dated until the person you're talking to, deadass, deletes their account instead of blocking or removing you. Man, good evening. Coming in hot. Yeah, I don't know what that would even mean. I guess that's the goal, right? Isn't that the goal? You want them to delete their account? The goal is for you both to delete your account, hopefully. That's not the goal, Stan. All right.
The difference between effort applied, work done, real world results. I really love it, and I think...
Okay, I think we're good on that one. 7 key lessons for a strong relationship. We can skip over that. The shame of small fears. The video explores why people often feel shame about minor fears and encourages acceptance of these anxieties. This is actually a huge deal that we actually don't talk about enough in our notes here. So what would this be? This is, this is, I mean, obviously this comes up when we're talking about like emotion regulation, but when we're talking about emotion regulation, we're really talking about it more abstractly and like just more generally. But when maybe during identifying what to pursue, when we start talking about considering possibility, we need to perhaps consider the topics that he might mention here.
All right, next one, the shame of small fears. So I wrote an essay about the shame of simple pleasures, and it got me thinking about something really similar, but on the other side. So, the shame of small fears. Imagine explaining modern fear to a caveman. Well, you see, Grok, people today get terrified when they have to send a message. Grok blinks. Message carved on stone? No, a sentence on a glowing rectangle. Enemy tribe see message? No. Saber-toothed tiger smell message? No. Then why fear? Well, because the other person might think badly of us. Grok cries laughing. And yet, that's the whole point. We inherited a nervous system calibrated for lions,
Minor fears like absolutely destroying a donut in the middle of Dunkin'. There's no shame in that. Why can't a brother just let out his goofy side? Are we talking about the person in Dunkin', or are we talking about Chris? Because I feel like when Chris does something like this, this is a great screech. Like, this is his goofy side, I think, when he goes into these types of things. This guy has never met Grug, by the way. He has a mobile phone now. True. Also, Grug was probably scared of talking too. Yeah. Probably scared of snakes as well. That's not the Grug I know and love. Man, where's Grug? Grug needs a Snickers. That's what Grug needs. All right, what are we trying to get out of this? Considering possibilities, considering fears, and considering simple fears. What would it be? Having self-empathy for simple fears, and I don't know. And considering what type, what kinds of opportunities would be available if one faced them. Now, I don't know if this is where he's going to go, but
using it to navigate awkward conversations and underwhelming careers. Evolution never updated the software. It just repurposed it. Your ancestors needed courage to keep their bodies alive. You need courage to keep your identity intact. It's almost comic when you zoom out, right? The same species that once stared down hungry predators now breaks into a sweat, trying to say something needs to change. But it's not because we've become pathetic, it's because the monsters changed shape. Old dangers could kill your body, the new ones threaten your belonging. Your entire biology gears up for exile from a village that now only exists as a group chat. Your body still thinks that you'll die alone in the wilderness if you tell the truth. It's the residue of a limbic system designed for a world that no longer exists. And this is where the real suffering begins. Not in the fear, but in your shame about the fear. A voice inside says, how...
So this is actually like a good part 3ism where we can consider... we should once again make clear that what we deal with today are evolutionary byproducts, and we don't need to, and a respect for that can help us with any shame we feel about our emotions. Boom.
How dare you be upset by this?
RAR, what is that? SM orc? This has got to be pseudoscience. There's no way that's true. Well, yeah, the way that he's packaging this, obviously, he doesn't have... Like, he's probably getting this from talks he's had with people that do have science. And so there's like a... You know, there's a little bit of a disconnect there. That being said, I imagine like this is just this is another type of cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy is obviously a really popular type of treatment today. So I'm sure there's credence to it. This is perfect, bro. Science as far as I can see. Right, the way that he's packaging it is obviously in bro science form. but I don't think that there's nothing there.
Other people had it so much worse. Don't you know how small and feeble this makes you? Sure, maybe there were more kinetic threats in the past, but knowing that your life isn't collapsing doesn't stop your heart racing as if it is. It just makes you feel guilty for crying in the ancestral equivalent of a feather bed. It's not just the fear that hurts. It's the feeling that your fear is illegitimate, that your emotions needed to pass some mythical severity threshold before you're allowed to feel them. This is the shame of small fears, the belief that your life is...
And a lot of that is also just cultural expectations and stuff like that. We should talk about cultural expectations and whatnot. How to manage cultural expectations, etc. Okay, chill. Don't need to call us out like that. He's coming for everyone. All right. The Atlas complex. This concept delves into the... Yeah, the thing with Chris is, like, I feel like he's got, like, he's got a bag. You know, he's got this bag, and he keeps pulling out, like, these tricks. He's got, like, different, you know, gadgets, and, like, everything that he's got is packaged into these, like... in these nice names, and it's all like a thing, you know. And while I think that's effective, and I think a lot of people like that, because obviously this channel is huge, that's not the way I want to go about this this document. You know, I don't want to have a name for each thing. I want to just kind of say it as it is, you know. Like, we already have concepts for these things, you know. We don't need to put an extra name on it. We could just talk about the burden that people feel when carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And so this would be expectations once again. A burden of expectations. The shame of not meeting them. And the burden of expectation. I don't know. Something like that. Hopes for 2026. Shares aspirations and outlook. Okay, what do we got here?
All right. That's it. I love you all. Fuck, this has been a tough year, dude. Holy shit. Thank you for making it to the end. Thank you for making it to the end of the year and the end of the episode. It's been a hard one for me.
I don't deserve this because I put this into the summary. I'll give him the like, though.
And the structure that this podcast provides has given me a lot to hold on to when shit's been hard, because fuck, it's been hard. Like, by far, by a factor of like 2 or 3 times the toughest year of my life, maybe even more. And getting to spend time coming up with these ideas, reflecting on my experience, trying to turn them into something useful that's going to live on a little bit longer. Getting to speak to these guests, getting the support of you guys it's really, really meaningful. And thank you for doing it. Maybe next year I will have more gumption and gusto or whatever, but I've been really real this year. The episodes have been a bit more dour and reflective and introspective and maybe a bit sad, but that's where I've been at. And I hope it's made you feel less alone in your challenges. I hope it's given you, you know, fucking gratefulness if you're just flying high and everything's going great. I'm looking forward to a good 2026. If I can do what I've done over the last 12 months, feeling the way that I've felt, fucking God help the world if I get back to full capacity. I wouldn't bet against me. Anyway, I appreciate you all. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Goodbye.
I did like that ending, except for the very end where he he does the little the don't bet against me thing. I think that's a very Manosphere type thing to say. Now, granted, I'm also like very much just, you know, exuding just, you know, I mean, for him, it's you could say it's deserved. For me, you know, it's not necessarily deserved yet. Actually, you know, I take that back. I don't want to make the one criteria for deserving self-confidence to be online numbers. Like, I think that the stuff that we've done in the past year has been pretty damn cool. So I won't strike him on that. Yeah, I do take Chris to be like like, you know, someone that is trying to do something good. Like, that's always been the takeaway I've had So I would definitely collab with Chris. Like I don't see him as some bad or dishonest actor. So you know, I think that would be a great collab for this channel. All right. Also, yeah, to what you're saying, like I do acknowledge that people that make a lot of money can still feel terrible. Like you know, I'm gonna once again remind everyone that once you can start, I mean, this is a Jordan Peterson thing he says, but once you can start paying the bills, once you can pay the bills, more money doesn't necessarily equal more happiness. You know, you're still dealing with the same temperamental baseline, and that might be one with a decent amount of neuroticism. So you know. Top 10 Marcus Aurelius quotes. Maslow proven right yet again. Literally drew a pyramid. Right? Yep. Yeah, so I'm kind of, you know, I'm a little curious about what he's going through. And I don't want to say this in such a way where like he's doing something wrong, but like I'm curious because he has so many people coming on to explain how you can, you know, the types of things you can do to make yourself feel good and better about yourself to the, you know, day to day, and you know how to feel a more emotionally rewarding life. I'm curious where the struggles come into play. I mean, it could just be, you know, neuroticism is neuroticism, you know. It could be that actual things have happened in his life, you know, like events in his, whether it's his family or whatnot, and that's causing it. Could just be anxiety. Could be a ton of things. Yeah, like it could, you know, it's a little, like when I see that type of thing, it's a little discouraging in a small sense, knowing that you know, I could make this entire document. I can make the whole part 3 that's going to explain exactly how you can, you know, improve your life. But perhaps it doesn't work on every single person. Like perhaps there is like some level of error where this type of thing just won't help someone. Now, like, it's not discouraging because I know that it's the chances are it's going to help a lot of people. It's going to help a huge distribution of the people that use it. You just want to have it be able to help everyone, you know, like you want it to be something that could work for anyone. And I mean, that's still the goal. That's still like the ideal that I want to work towards. But yeah, we have to keep that in mind, that sometimes, you know, just knowing information doesn't do the job. Which is fine, you know, it's just the way it is. All right. We could go to anything else, by the way. But I was just going to continue here where we left off. We got past all the boring stuff, and now we're actually to the behavioral protocols. Always choose action. Hell yeah. Yeah, I feel like always, just like any bit of action can like change your day, you know. Like I found that like one of the best ways to jumpstart a day, like no matter how bad of like a beginning it's had, is like literally do the smallest thing that you would believe is actually productive, and that like that just change that it flips the scale where now you can work downhill, you know, if we're going to use that analogy or that metaphor, as opposed to, you know, at the beginning you're just looking at this mountain, like, you know, perhaps yeah. All right. Applied neuromodulation, behavioral protocols. Understanding these molecular mechanisms allows for the development of behavioral protocols to optimize cognitive performance. Woo! Part 2, we're back down to biological conditions. I don't know how we're going to... I think I'm going to try to spend a lot of time this weekend coming up with exactly what I want to say in each of these subsections so that I know how we might start going about either continuing or... I don't know if I'm actually going to write any of these sections like during these months. Maybe I do, but there's just too much stuff to learn initially that I want to do this year that I don't know if it gives me enough time to actually draft out sections for each of these things, but maybe we will. Maybe we'll find the time. Ideally we do that. It doesn't have to be in the month that we're in, but I could just keep behind the scenes drafting stuff. Like we're moving on to automatic behaviors next month, and like we still have so much stuff to talk about in this one. So we'll see. All right, ultradian rhythms. This is like a classic Hubermanism. The brain operates on biological cycles known as ultradian rhythms, typically lasting 90 to 120 minutes. These cycles likely reflect the depletion kinetics of releasable neurotransmitter pools. So we got acetylcholine and dopamine, and the accumulation of metabolic waste, adenosine and glutamate in the astrocytes. So, can we get the other guy back? Can we get do we have another guy here? Yeah, we do. Okay. The question is, do ultradian rhythms apply to adenosine buildup? I assumed that adenosine buildup was progressive and always positive. So adenosine is what like what gets you to actually feeling sleepy by the end of the day, and the only way to really like clean that up is via deep sleep. So I'm not sure what's going on here. All right. The great debates in sleep science. Is sleepiness a straight line or a wave? The short answer is adenosine buildup itself is generally linear, progressive, but the clearance of sensing it might be modulated by ultradian rhythms. Whoa. Adenosine is the process S, homeostatic component of sleep, which is defined by its progressive positive accumulation. It does not oscillate wildly like your alertness does. Okay. The signal, though, might interact with the rhythm. Sleep regulation is famously described as the collision of two forces. Process S, I don't know where we're getting this S from. This is adenosine. It is the cumulative counter. It starts at 0 when you wake up and ticks up linearly for every minute you are awake. Does not have a 90-minute rhythm. It is shear pressure. It is a shear pressure gradient. But then we've got this the ultradian and circadian system. This is your body temperature, cortisol, and alertness. This is what oscillates. You might feel tired at 2 p.m. This is not because you had a sudden spike in adenosine. Your adenosine has been rising steadily all day. It is because your process C, your alertness, took a cyclic nosedive, revealing the adenosine that was already there. Okay, this makes sense. Can ultradian rhythms affect adenosine? While the buildup is mostly linear, there is nuance in how it is produced locally. If your ultradian rhythm dictates that you focus intensely for 90 minutes and then zone out for 20 minutes, the intense phase, you burn more ATP, faster adenosine accumulation locally in the cortex, but then the rest, you burn less ATP, slower accumulation, etc. So while the overall global tank is filling up linearly, the rate of filling changes. And then the gate theory, sleep onset, where ultradian rhythms do apply to adenosine is at the gate of sleep. You cannot just fall asleep at any moment. The 90-minute ultradian cycle continues even when you are awake. Every 90 minutes, your brain enters a fragile state, low arousal, that corresponds to the REM, non-REM switch in sleep. This creates a sleep gate. If your adenosine is high and you hit the low point of your ultradian cycle, the gate opens and you fall asleep instantly. If you fight through that 20-minute drowsiness window, your ultradian rhythm, ultradian arousal kicks back in. Okay, so the one thing I've always tried to figure out, though, is like when Huberman talks about ultradian rhythms, is like, is it set? Is it set based on when you wake up or go to sleep, or like how does it change? How does the rhythm change over time? I understand that the rhythm is periodic and roughly similar lengths. What is the mechanism for it changing rhythm? Is it possible to do something that resets the rhythm, like right now? Or is it, or is there a way to get a feel for where you are within that rhythm? Like, how are you able to game this rhythm if you're not certain when it's happening? Okay, these cycles likely reflect the depletion kinetics of releasable neurotransmitter pool. Okay, right, we talked about that. 0 to 20 minutes, warm up. 20 to 70 minutes, peak performance. 70 to 90 minutes, fatigue onset. So we aren't going to give much screen time to ultradian rhythms just because it's so like difficult to actually leverage practically. Like you almost need to not have a job and you almost need to not have anything going on in order to like plan your entire day around these rhythms. Now we could try to consider what type of easy practical strategies we can employ, like maybe right when you wake up. That's an easy thing for you to do. Obviously going to bed, like it's kind of right there with sleep where you start some pre-sleep protocol at a certain amount of time before you want to actually go to bed and start falling asleep. Protocol working in 90-minute bouts aligns with this biology. Pushing beyond 90 minutes often yields diminishing returns as the system shifts from focus to stress, dominance to force, continued output. Okay. This is the holy grail of productivity, moving from being a passenger of your rhythms to being the driver. The short answer is yes, you can force a reset. While the ultradian rhythm is an automatic biological oscillation, is not a rigid prison. It is responsive to acute physiological shock. Here is the mechanism of the rhythm, how to detect your position, and how to hard reboot it right now. Unlike circadian rhythm, 24 hours, which has a master clock, the SCN. Ooh, what is the SCN? I don't recall. The ultradian rhythm, 90 minutes, is likely a distributed metabolic neurochemical toggling. Works like a capacitor, charging and discharging. The charge, the lateral hypothalamus pumps orexin, wakefulness, driving dopamine and norepinephrine. You're in the go phase, and then the drain. As you maintain focus, local neural circuits deplete their readily available glycogen and neurotransmitter pools. Potassium currents change in the neurons, making them harder to fire. Once the resistance becomes too high, the brainstem switches dominance from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. This is the trough. Can you reset it? You can interrupt a trough and force a new peak by triggering a massive acute release of adrenaline. Normally, the cycle resets after 20 minutes of rest, but if you need to perform right now, you could override the metabolic fatigue with a survival signal. You need a signal that tells your brain, I don't care that we are tired, there is a tiger. So cold exposure, hyperventilation, non-sleep deep rest. If you don't, if you have 20 minutes, don't fight it, lean into it. A 20-minute Yoga Nidra script accelerates the rest phase. It clears the metabolic waste faster than just zoning out, allowing you to start a fresh 90-minute cycle immediately after. And then we need this, how do you feel it, right? Now, we could also talk about how, like, maybe mindfulness meditation can get you to being able to understand where you're at throughout the day. You can learn to detect your phase by monitoring your friction and impulse control. The upswing. So the feeling getting into the task feels easy. You have traction. The test. If you drop your pen, you pick it up instantly without thinking it. Okay. The peak. Flow. Time dilation. You are not thinking about how to do work. You are just doing it. You have zero desire to check your phone. The external world fades away. So I think a more practical way to go about this is just to say every this many minutes, we're going to take a break. And we assume that actually, we should see that. Would it be more practical to just say every 90 minutes we're going to take a break? And then have the rhythm slowly adjust to this tempo. Okay, the trough. That's the feeling of friction, right? If things start getting hard, then that's a good time to take a break. Like, we could always just, we could talk about in terms of productivity that if your brain's telling you to take a break, it's probably a good idea to take a break, and then that we could say what would be good for that break, such as not sleep deep rest. The short answer is yes. It is far more practical to impose a rigid external structure and force your body to align with it, entrainment, than to constantly try to feel your way through invisible metabolic cycles. Here is why the fake it till you make it strategy works for biological rhythms and how your brain will adjust. Does the document address the everything is boring feeling? I think it should. I think it absolutely needs to. Right where we're at, too. It's going to be a part of this whole discussion of... where do we have it? Just motivation? Energy and motivation? Yeah. Tackle the everything is boring feeling. Absolutely. Yeah, like I think. Oh, actually, we also have this type of idea: strategies for. Oh no, that's productivity. Where did I put? Maybe I added it here, but the idea of like things like procrastination, and things being boring, like that needs to be covered, for sure. All everything that touches if you have an idea for anything else, also anything that even touches upon productivity and getting to do something and whatnot, like that needs to be in there. All right, the concept entrainment phase locking. In chronobiology, entrainment is the process where an internal clock synchronizes with an external cue. Sunlight resets your 24-hour clock. Behavior resets your 90-minute clock. Awesome. So, yeah, this is the whole... I don't even think I put this in the document yet, but it's huge. Just the getting the sunlight right when you wake up. And then... yeah, ultradian example. Behavior resets your 90-minute clock. If you sit down at 9 a.m. every single day and focus, your body learns to release dopamine and norepinephrine at 8:55. It is anticipatory mobilization. So is the tip here to have a similar routine every day? Why this is safer than surfing. Trying to feel the rhythm has a major flaw. Okay. To be clear, does this only work when setting up a routine, a daily routine? In other words, needing to start at the exact same time every day? Or can it be simply a, you know, a time stamped? Or can it simply be a routine that can start whenever, but has indicators for when it starts? For example, making a cup of coffee right before doing hard work. The adjustment period lag. So this is going to be week 1 friction, week 2 alignment. The one danger, the flow state interrupt. The only downside to a strict 90-minute timer is interrupting a massive dopamine flow or dopamine wave. At 85 minutes, you finally crack the code. You're in deep flow. The timer goes off. The rule, treat the timer as a check-in, not a law. Right, if you're chilling, you know. It is effectively a routine-based system, not just a clock-based one. You absolutely do not need to start at the exact same time every day for this to work. While starting at 9 a.m. every day leverages your circadian cortisol spike, the 90-minute focus cycle itself is a state of arousal that can be triggered on demand. Here is why the coffee routine is just as powerful. The starting gun. Why indicators are crucial. Okay, so I think this is a huge deal though. Like when we're talking about routine, indicators like this are crucial. Like obviously this is the case, as I mentioned, with sleep. You want to give your brain something tangible so that it knows that it's time to wind down. And when I say tangible, like it needs to be a pattern that it recognizes. And you could do the same for work here. You don't want to just, you know, throw your brain into this activity raw if we're trying to maximize productivity. That's kind of why maybe school is a cool setup where your brain might get used to sitting in certain classes or doing certain things and getting ready to work. You have the quality presets again today, by the way. You don't have them the other day. The quality presets. What are the quality presets? Oh, the quality presets. We have the quality presets. Hell yeah. That's good, right? This means what? We can go up to quality. This? Is that what we're getting at? Am I not allowed to go higher than 1080p? I actually don't remember what we're referring to. Was it something like this? Oh, man. Yes, it means Twitch is allocating you some extra stuff. Oh, okay. What do we usually exist at? Or how does it usually look? I don't know how accurate it is, though. 1080p is the default, right? Aren't we still there, or is this different? I do like the 60 FPS. You could definitely notice the difference. You have all the others now. Oh, is it usually just 1080p, but now we have different ones, at least for this stream? Oh, yeah, look at this. Look at that. That's just great. Yeah, it would be nice to output at 1440 someday. I don't know if that's even in the cards for us. Where do I choose that? Is that video? Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I'm not even choosing it. Huh. Interesting. Oh, okay. We could go to 1440 at some point. I think for you know, if I ever make a video, I could always just up it. But yeah, no, that's cool. I'm glad they're giving us some extra oomph. I'll take it. Okay, visual focus drives mental focus. There is a bi-directional link between the visual system and the arousal system. The eyes are physically an extension of the brain. The neural circuits controlling overt attention are wired into the locus ceruleus and the midbrain raphe nuclei. The mechanism: narrowing the visual aperture, staring at a specific point, suppresses saccades. I actually don't remember what this saccade refers to. Ballistic eye movements that shift gaze between fixation points. This suppression requires inhibitory control, which triggers a reflex release of acetylcholine and norepinephrine. This visual anchor pulls the cognitive system into a high focus state. Protocol: staring at a fixed point for 30 to 60 seconds can mechanically trigger the release of neurochemicals required for mental task initiation. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that one. So you're about to do something hard, maybe like you're about to get a test. What you would want to do is you want to just stare at a point on your page, waiting for that test to be placed on your desk, rather than looking around. Okay. Non-sleep deep rest. Hell yeah. NSDR, or Yoga Nidra, is a protocol designed to accelerate the recovery phase of the ultradian cycle. All right, we got there through questions, but this is always here. Imaging studies suggest that deep rest states can increase the availability of dopamine receptors and potentially replenish vesicular pools in the striatum, similar to the recovery seen in sleep. I forget, what are vesicles again? Vesicles, these are just transport materials within cells or release them outside, acting as a crucial delivery trucks for proteins, waste. Okay, that's cool. So replenishing vesicular pools is just getting more vesicles. You get more trucks. All right, adenosine clearance. By reducing neuronal firing rates globally, NSDR reduces the production of adenosine and glutamate. This allows us astrocytes to catch up on clearance, reducing sleep pressure and restoring the capacity for high-frequency firing. Now, what we just got in is that the astrocytes aren't going to really clear up the adenosine in such a way where it's actually going to make you. It's going to take away from the adenosine buildup. So I'm not sure where this is getting that, but at least we know that about the glutamate. It's getting rid of the glutamates. The glutes. I think saying glutamates is actually like I out myself as a non-neuroscientist. All right, cortisol reset. NSDR shifts the autonomic nervous system towards parasympathetic dominance, lowering cortisol and allowing the prefrontal cortex to switch back from the stress pathway to the focus pathway. Hell yeah. All right, conclusion. The integrated circuit, the deployment of attention, and the sustainment of motivation are not the result of a single willpower molecule, but the output of a dynamic integrated circuit. We got arousal with norepinephrine, we got selection with acetylcholine, we got drive with dopamine, we got inhibition with serotonin and GABA. We got fuel with lactate and cortisol, coming from glucose. We've got recovery, adenosine and NSDR. All right. Now, what happens here? Like, do I go from a research topic to another research topic? Okay, can you now give a comprehensive? I'm gonna do the menu option again. Menu of protocols that specifically target these chemicals for the sake of attention, focus, motivation, productivity, rest, etc. All right, we're gonna need like a video or something to do while we wait. I could just find something in the archives. We could actually continue watching these meditation videos. One thing for scientists to understand. All right, we need something here though. Are we not? I don't think we're getting it. This thing needs to give us some text. So I think we go back, we restart, and then we put this in, and I think we get text now. Text? No text? Maybe we just have to start a new chat. I don't even know if when you follow up a research paper like this, a deep research, does this have access to the contents of this? Or is it completely novel? All right, maybe it needs time, so I'm gonna give it space. We're going back to Beth Upton here. Man, this is some good ASMR stuff.
What is one main thing you would like meditation researchers and scientists to understand?
Perfect. This is for me.
Broadly, I would like science to understand the causal relationships between Nama and Rupa, so between mind and matter, or consciousness and materiality. Broadly, that's what I would like science to understand. At the moment, most of science can't really get its head around consciousness being completely non-physical. And then it's like consciousness must be some kind of emergent property of something material or something like that. It must have some subtle material qualities, because science is so used to being materialistic. So I'd like science to understand that. First of all, that Nama, consciousness, and all of the mental factors are completely non-physical. They don't have any physical characteristics whatsoever. And that they are in various kinds of causal relation with materiality. So a couple of big examples would be mind-born materiality. The fact that there's materiality that exists in our bodies that is literally produced by consciousness. I'd like science to understand that somehow. And also that consciousness is supported by physical materiality in the heart. I think this would be good information for science. But in brief, yeah, those causal relation between mind and matter. I'd love for science to know that.
I'm curious what she means with the materiality in like the heart and in the brain. I think we're chilling. With this. I know I'm gonna like look at this through my lens, but I think the issue comes when like the physicalist scientists will start viewing the emergence of consciousness and then start having takeaways about the nature of ontology, and that's the thing that I think perhaps controversially have been trying to push back on. Like when we talk about concepts, like that is not the physical world. Like we're not talking about material reality. We're talking about, now we could say we're talking about manifestations of some material thing, like it's manifestations of brain connections, and not just brain connections, but the activation throughout the brain, the integrated complexity of activity distributed throughout the brain, right? But like when we're talking about our experience, like these concepts that we're experiencing, we have to kind of we have to make that separation. And now we're in a different land. We're not in the physical land. Once we've acknowledged that connection, like just because that connection's there, that doesn't mean that the things that we feel like or the things we feel like we're thinking are manifestations of some physical external truth. And that's like I think that's where we're good. Now that's probably not what she's getting at, but that's how I go about this, where I'm gonna make the Sam Harris is upset with that one. You know, that was the thing that Ivan wasn't bought in on. I don't think. Like there's still that, and the only reason I'm getting that, the only reason I got there was through things like Being in Time and the linguistic philosophers. But also, I think that is like an actual logical conclusion of what we know about consciousness from our physical understanding of consciousness. Okay. The yogis say there is some center of the self on the right side of the chest. Huh. I'm curious where they get that from, other than intuitive feelings. But I'm sure they get it from intuitive feelings. But yeah, I'm curious what about the intuitive feelings would give you that type of sense. Like what might be, what interoceptive signal might be giving you that feeling. And perhaps it's a signal that most of us don't feel. But because these yogis get so in tune with their sense data, then they can make an observation that most people can't. Ramana Maharshi is most known for it, I think. I haven't experienced it, so I can't say, but would be interesting to see all the places that say that. I'm interested why she would say scientists need to hear that. I think, I mean, when I start talking about, my usual spiel about objective truth and whatnot, I think that falls most controversially on scientists, people that are already inclined to demand some empirical basis for what we're talking about. But then if you point out that, hey, like the things that we understand, like the things that we think about that come in our mind, it's very difficult to find the empirical basis of that, other than through obviously our actual consciousness science. Like you are at a loss because you can't do you're not finding neural correlations in the moment when you're thinking things. So the issue is, like, I think a lot of scientists believe that the concepts that they're thinking about are actual representations of the physical world. However, we know really well that so much of our processes are products of evolution, and evolution does not have the same underlying standards of empirical evidence that scientists have. So there's a lot of reasons why we think things that don't line up with an emotionless, rational, or at least what scientists believe is like the perfect emotionless, rational basis of physical truth. So I think that's I would make the same claim that that's something. That's the type of philosophy that scientists need to start wrapping their head around, because I think it would help them in consciousness research. And now I think a lot of the people that are in consciousness research have figured that type of thing out. And that's why they're calling consciousness a controlled hallucination. Now it's not a hallucination. This is something I was thinking about. Like when these consciousness researchers are saying a controlled hallucination, they don't mean that we're like in a matrix and that everyone's controlled hallucination is the same, brought to you by this transcendent matrix. It's that everyone's experiencing a different controlled hallucination according to their own body's allostasis and regulation and all that fun stuff. And it's each of these hallucinations are both, you could say, they're fundamentally different, because people have different understandings, different architectures of the brain, different architectures of the body. They have different genetics that they're dealing with, so proteins are going to be built differently. But at the same time, we can recognize that people do experience things in similar ways. Now, once again, this goes back to like the nature versus nurture. We could point out that, emotions are probably, experienced pretty similarly in a sense. Granted, there's a lot of there's a lot of top-down interpretation that goes into feeling emotions, but yeah, and then we need that type of discussion of how we can arrive at pragmatically similar understandings, which makes people think that there's some truth that we all understand, and that's tricky. But you know, you can do that also with simply the science. But yeah, that's my usual stick. I should save that for when new people come in here. You know, you guys have heard me say this stuff over and over again, so I apologize for that.
Or at least be open to learning about it. But the difficulty is that science doesn't have the right tools. You can't observe something completely non-physical with something physical. You can't observe it with the five senses, you can't observe it with logic, you can't observe it with physical apparatus or whatever. You can only observe it with a more refined consciousness, i.e. with samadhi. That's the tool of observation, that's the tool of investigation. And typically scientists don't have that tool. So maybe like a preliminary message that I would like to give to the scientific community is to respect samadhi as a scientific tool. Respect samadhi as a tool of knowledge, as a tool of investigation. But that's asking quite a lot culturally of the scientific community, but that's what I would like. Yeah.
So that's the thing that I'm blanking on their name, but the neurophenomenology people have deeply understood. I mean, we talked about this like a month ago or so. This is who do we got in here? Hitchhiker's Guide, right? We got who am I actually looking for? None of these guys I'm looking for. I'm looking for the guy. We watched the video of the one guy. Yeah, here we go. We got Varela, and then I forget who he was working with. Who's still going about it today. Their name's got to be among this list, right? Is there books, publications? Huh. Oh, there it is, Evan Thompson. So yeah, they grasp that. Haha, I don't mind. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Dharmadam. Yeah, so the idea of neurophenomenology is like, hey, we're gonna use these what did she call it? These zoned in minds. I forget what she said. You know, the people that have all this training and can focus on sense data much more clearly than the average person. The idea is that if we're going to leverage or if we're going to try to figure out how the brain operates in like from the viewpoint of consciousness, then we can use them. And the difficulty of that type of science is so I guess the other thing that I should mention is the way she's using science is she's using it specifically focusing on like the you know, the usual notion of empirical as, you know, we're trying to find physical stuff in the world and we want that physical stuff to be empirical. But like another, like science is, you know, more so the standard and the type of processes and the evidence that needs to be involved. So you can still do a consciousness-based science. There's obviously concerns with the type of, like how you have to go about that, and you need like huge sample sizes to you you need randomization, and you need sample sizes such that this type of conscious report, self-report, can be, data that you can work with. The issue when you're dealing with just like a few of these experts, though, is that you're only dealing with a few people. So it's very difficult to have the same type of punch as you can with some other methods here. But that being said, like if we found like a crowdsourced, if we had a community here, we could do some crowdsourced convenience samples, and that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We can see, what works for people. I don't know. She said Samadhi 2, a one-pointed. I think her definition of samadhi would be you're so zoned in that there's no senses or thought, just the emotion of the jhana. Okay, so I guess there is a difficulty there, though, where at the point that you can understand the feeling that you're experiencing in the moment. Actually, okay, we talked about this also, that you don't necessarily need to understand the moment, or you don't need to understand the experience within the moment. You can understand that experience after the fact and have some sort of memory. But you could argue that even that type of memory is already too far away from the type of observation that she's talking about. She might be just talking about the type of observation that you have in the moment without any interpretation happening at all. And like it's going to be very difficult to do science on that. But then we get into this pragmatic discussion of like, okay, what are we trying to do here? If we're trying to prescribe, then we are in this weird place where we do need some sort of scientific evidence, and it's going to be hard if we're just leveraging some, feeling that even if it's a bunch of people that they might have about a certain thing, if we're not putting in the empirical work. Hard John, there's something technical about what the object is too, the way they do it in Burma. I don't remember. Okay. Huh. Yeah, I feel like that would be a very difficult place to get to. That would be, I don't think that's even in the cards for me. Like, with the amount of time that I think I'm able to spend. That's some advanced stuff.
And maybe, if you're patient, one day I'll write a book about it.
Whoa! Oh my gosh, this is 4 months ago? We're not getting that book for a while. Man, she's dropping that on us. Oh, look at this. Oh, wow. It didn't even do deep research. It just kind of gave us feedback. Okay. I never have, LOL, but I'm developing a type of concentration that's antithetical to that kind of thing, I think. Okay. Yeah, I guess you what is that, full OM? Is that the type of, like, what is that type of practice? I feel like OM sometimes had too much of a labeling aspect. But OM, I think, is a broad category. So you'd have to do OM where you're not labeling, right? And then you just get to a point where you're just noticing without any chatter whatsoever. I should be using the words always. What did OM stand for again? OM, meditation. Observation meditation? I can't even find it. Open monitoring. Thank you. Okay, I don't know what the scientific name is. The Vipassana name is momentary concentration or advanced momentary concentration. Nice. Very cool. Yeah, I almost wonder if, like, once you get into the, we had that discussion the other day, where we went through the menu of meditation techniques, and I wonder if once you start getting into the real nitty gritty, it almost doesn't matter what kind of differences of skills we're dealing with, because it's roughly going to be similar outcomes. Now, granted, I think the granularity you probably can only navigate subjectively. Like if you're trying to focus on something specifically, if you're trying to get something specifically out of it, this is a subjective journey now. Like the science, it would be very difficult for the science to tell us something really specific about the differences between these practices until we start getting a ton of people doing the practices and then have studies with them and whatnot. Or until we just understand the brain much more clearly, but that's going to be a while. All right, there is overlap in common mechanisms, but generally no. If you practice one technique, you can go a wildly different direction to another technique. Right. I guess what I'm saying is like the differences there are going to be most noticeable subjectively. Like there's going to be a lot of differences in the internal, the trajectory of your architecture, the trajectory of how your brain develops. But it's going to be difficult to find, to gather those differences at the levels that we can currently measure differences of outcome. Like in terms of the main measurable things of focus and whatnot, we're going to see very similar changes. But I think in terms of your experience, you get into this crazy difference. Consider doing only compassion meditation versus only death meditation. Whoa. Well, yeah, I'm curious if death meditation has any of the. Actually, what is death meditation? What are you're meditating on the possibility of death, or the apathy of death, or is it supposed to be sad, or is it supposed to be triumphant, or neither? All right, based on the neurochemical framework established in this report, here's a comprehensive menu of behavioral, nutritional, and supplemental protocols. These are categorized by their desired cognitive state, the goal, and the primary neuromodulatory system they target. So we got phase 1, initiation and alertness, the go state. So this is overcoming friction, mobilizing energy, and sharpening sensory selection. Primary targets, norepinephrine, dopamine, cortisol, acetylcholine. Morning sunlight. Here we go. Huberman. Get him on the phone. Action. 10 to 30 minutes outside. No sunglasses immediately after waking. If dark, use bright artificial lights, then get outside when sun rises. So viewing bright light within 30 to 60 minutes of waking triggers the cortisol awakening response. This naturally clears adenosine and sets the circadian timer for sleep 12 to 16 hours later. All right, we got cold water immersion. Cold plunge. This is going to be a minute to 3 minutes cold shower or immersion. Do this early in the day. Wall staring during the cold enhances the mental resilience effect. Wall staring? Wall staring? What, do you walk outside, you stare at a wall for 3 minutes when it's cold out? What is happening? I should just do an early cold walk, like maybe not even putting on a jacket. All right, catecholamine shock. Cold shock, approximately 50 to 60 Fahrenheit, causes a massive sustained release of norepinephrine and dopamine, up to a 250% increase that lasts for hours, effectively increasing the brain's idle speed. So yeah, this is like the way that I understand cold plunges as well is it's actually a phenomenal mechanism for getting your dopamine tolerance down. So like if you feel like you've been going crazy on TikTok and or YouTube shorts, and you're so dopamine rotted out right now, like a cold plunge can actually, especially early in the morning, can make it so that you're better positioned the next day for reward systems. Like you're going to be less impulsive. All right. Look up Maranasati. It's considered protective. Okay. Can you walk me through Maranasati? Lessens fear of death, lessens attachment and attachment to the body, creates dispassion, lessens lust, insight into impermanence. It's considered protective and preliminary. I believe that's awesome. It's a practice that involves reflecting on the certainty and inevitability of death. While the subject matter may seem morbid to some, the traditional intent is to overcome fear, reduce attachment, and cultivate a sense of urgency to live meaningfully in the present moment. So another thing about this type of meditation, I imagine there's a huge component of voluntary practice here. Like, I think this would be destructive if someone was forced into this, but if you really, you really want to do this for the reasons said, maybe you're uncomfortable with death, but you want to get over that, like, and you're knowingly doing this, then I think this is just like a, straight up cognitive behavioral therapy. Because it's not that like some people are afraid of things, like obviously in the world, like they have phobias, but some people are afraid of certain thoughts. And that's the type of, like, this is the type of exposure therapy that you can literally give to yourself about thoughts. Like, you force yourself to have the thoughts. And then you notice what is happening with my body as I think about these, and you start getting, desensitized to these thoughts in such a way that allows you to operate. All right. Fun fact, out of the 40 objects given for traditional Buddhist meditation, 10 of them are stages of body decay. What are the intermediary stages? I used to do it whenever lust came up in meditation. Awesome. Yeah. All right, the practice is not meant to induce depression or nihilism. Instead, it's used to reframe one's perspective on life. By accepting that time is limited, practitioners often find that petty anxieties dissolve, leaving room for greater gratitude and focus. So yeah, I feel like once you get past that cognitive behavioral therapy aspect of this, or I guess you could say this is all cognitive behavioral therapy, but after the layer of just being upset or anxious about that thought, then you can start doing like further, like it's almost like gratitude training in a sense. Leaving room for greater gratitude and focus. Understanding that all conditioned things, including our bodies and lives, are transient. Cultivating a spiritual sense of urgency to practice diligence and avoid wasting time. All right, the 9 contemplations. In the Tibetan tradition, Maranasati is often structured around these roots, each containing 3 lines of reasoning. 9 contemplations in total. Death is certain. That's the root number 1. Oh my gosh, these are pretty morbid. We got to be careful, obviously, because we're not practicing it here, and there could be other people watching. So, root number 2, the time of death is uncertain. Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, these are things that I feel like I would actually not enjoy, but I'm open to this type of practice. Root 3, only spiritual practice helps at death. Wealth cannot help. You cannot buy more time, nor can you take a single penny with you. Loved ones cannot help. Even if surrounded by crying family members, you must face the transition of death alone. Yikes, the body cannot help. The body so this is, I wouldn't take this type of view, because I don't believe in like a transition where you go somewhere afterwards. So in that last moment, you do just have, I mean, you could say you do just have your emotions, but why not let your loved ones in on that, in that situation where your emotions can be one of love towards them, but I guess that could also just be under the spiritual in this sense. All right, how to practice. If you wish to try this meditation, it is generally recommended to start in a calm environment. I wouldn't want to do this anywhere else, right? Sit in a comfortable meditation posture. Focus on the breath for a few minutes to calm the mind. Visualization or reflection. Slowly recite the contemplations above to yourself. Pause after each one to ask, is this true? Let the reality of the statement sink in. So I would probably just leave the route 3 at home, and I would probably just do route 1 and route 2, and then like think about, maybe I would switch this out for things that I do care about, and like maybe make this a gratitude section. Like another thing about being afraid of death is being content with what you do in each day, you know, like being content with the idea that like, hey, if I do enough today, then even if I were to die tonight, I would like, you know, I could write my name on that, or I could sign off on it. Obviously you don't want to sign off on your death, but you're signing off on the fact that you kind of earned the day in a sense. Okay. Buddha quote. But as to the monks who develop mindfulness of death by wishing to live as long as it takes to chew and swallow a single mouthful, or to live as long as it takes to breathe out after breathing in, or to breathe in after breathing out, these are called monks who live diligently. Wow. So there is still a hope of life, just a very short-term hope. That like you shouldn't assume you will live longer than the next breath when you do it. Right? Some other monk is like, I meditate that I might die in a few breaths, and Buddha says that's not enough. Huh. So when you say and Buddha says that's not enough, is it it's not enough to do that meditation, or Buddha's saying it's not enough in the sense that Buddha's saying you have to keep living here, like you need to do more, or maybe not do more, but you have more life to experience, you have more moments to experience. Okay, we've got caffeine delay, adenosine management. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors but does not clear adenosine. Delaying intake allows natural cortisol to clear residual adenosine first, preventing the afternoon crash. So wait like 90 to 120 minutes after waking before ingesting caffeine. Okay. Overt to covert attention. Narrowing visual focus mechanically triggers the brainstem, the locus coeruleus, to release norepinephrine and acetylcholine, priming the brain for mental focus. Okay, this is what we did. We talked about visual anchoring. Stare at a specific visual point for 30 to 60 seconds before starting work. Blink normally, but do not move your gaze. All right, here's another Hubermanism, the physiological sigh. Oxygen CO2 balance, a specific breathing pattern that rapidly offloads CO2 and reduces acute stress, lowering the noise of alpha-1 adrenergic activation. Double inhale through the nose, followed by a long, slow exhale through the mouth. Repeat 1 to 3 times to steady the friction of starting. So this is you're leveraging the parasympathetic system here, and I guess that's a getting ready for start. Usually I think that's like more of like a chilling out rather than the go state, but I'll allow it. You can ask Gemini for the full story, I forget, but I think he's just describing how to do that meditation. And if you're still keeping it a few breaths away, that's not diligent enough. You need to consider that it could be at the end of the next in or out breath. I see. In a few breaths. I see. That's. It's not that the Buddha says that's not enough. It would be the Buddha says that's too many. That's too much. But I see what you mean. Okay. Phase 2, deep focus and pursuit, the flow state. Ooh. Goals: sustaining attention, blocking distraction, and maintaining effort. Primary targets: dopamine, acetylcholine, glutamate, and gamma oscillations. All right, here we go. We got the ultradian bounce. Work in strict 90-minute blocks. Do not expect high performance beyond this window without a reset. And we could also bring in the other things we talked about, such as having indicators for when you're going to start your 90-minute block. That gets your mind ready to go. The brain can only sustain high frequency gamma oscillations for about 90 minutes before glutamate accumulates and readily available dopamine acetylcholine pools deplete. Okay. Binaural beats. Listen to 40 hertz binaural beats or white noise during the work bout. Avoid lyrical music which competes for language processing. All right. Gamma entrainment. Auditory stimulation at 40 hertz can help entrain the firing of parvalbumin. Oh, the PV+. We were talking about the PV+. Interneurons. Okay, this is these are inhibitory neurons. They're specifically these are the ones that are specifically keeping the metronome going. These are the ones that are specifically setting the pace of local systems, supporting the gamma oscillations required for binding information. Okay. Am I right about that? Yeah. And then the claustrum is actually exciting these neurons, which is affecting the inhibition in such a way that it actually orchestrates information across the global workspace. So that deals with the slower wave lengths. Okay. Last time I did death meditation, I actually got flooded with joy. Awesome. I mean, I'm sure, I feel like that is right up next to some sort of loving kindness and gratitude meditation. I was like, wow, this feels like this is making me less attached, which gave me some joy. I thought it was funny and cool that it was giving me joy, and that flooded me. Hell yeah. That's awesome. I feel like that kind of feedback loop is pretty neat. Yo, Energy Dompter, what's good? We're talking about protocols. We're in our Humerman phase. All right, intermittent fasting. Do the most demanding cognitive work in a fasted state, for example, the morning, to leverage this evolutionary drive. Fasting increases ghrelin, which sensitizes dopamine receptors and increases dopamine release, promoting alertness and the hunt mode. Yikes. Random intermittent rewards. If you use rewards, for example, checking phone, music, snack, flip a coin. Only reward yourself if it's heads. This prevents dopamine habituation. Oh, this is insane. Okay, so I've been on the side. I've been reading about dopamine a lot, and it was talking about how games know, like game devs, and I guess the literature for game devs here, and really game devs aren't the ones using this. It would be like what are those places called? Casinos. Casinos know the literature on exactly how much novelty you need to keep going. Obviously, TikTok and whatnot, they know that as well, but that's a different system. Like, they need to know how many times you have to lose and how many times you have to win for you to be engaged and to keep going and to not get drained, or for the for the dopamine to not get habituated in such a way where you're not actually enthused about what's happening anymore. Like it needs to, they want to keep you at this like peak level of interest constantly, and games do this as well. Like they know, I think it's like, if imagine, yeah, the thing that I read was like, imagine that there's a big reward that you can get from a chest, and you find chests here and there. The amount of times that the game should give you that reward, if it wants you to be like most excited about finding a chest, is about 25% of the time. Now it could put in other things in the chests that are also good, but you know, this 25% of the big reward is really ideal here. Now, this is leveraging that same thing for yourself. If you set up a system where you might not get anything, right? You might open the chest and you might find nothing. So you might, at your break time, you might not get the reward. Then it prevents the habituation. It prevents you from not being excited about that. So you become complacent about your reward, and now you need a bigger reward. So if you want to just, you know, keep yourself as and the reason why you're doing this reward is because you want the drive to actually keep you going in your actual work here. So wow, this is crazy. I gotta think about how I might want to use that. I gotta put some thought to it. All right, targeted supplementation. Now, the other thing about this random intermittent rewards is this kind of goes hand in hand with the other thing that we talked about yesterday or the day before, where the way that you learn stuff is that, you know, when you're exposed to an experience, you know, a bunch of neurons are fired during that experience. And that initial firing sets chemical like tags on the synapses that have fired, and if you get hit with dopamine after that as like a reward, this is the reward prediction error. If something good happens after that, then dopamine floods the system, and that dopamine reaction actually leads to those neurons that were tagged from to be strengthened. It leads to them being strengthened. So then I was thinking, okay, when you're learning something, especially something that might be just boring, like you're not going to get that dopamine. But what if, like, right after you did your learning bout, you did something that was really high dopamine? And Gemini was suggesting that could work, provided that the thing that's really high dopamine afterwards isn't a similar activity, such that, you know, within a neuron, you would end up just strengthening the synapses that were related to the thing that you did afterwards. If it's a different type of activity, a different type of neuron spike, then you might be able to get the the previous neurons that you were using for the learning to get some of those spoils, and you can leverage this in order to get that type of significant dopamine afterwards, right? If once you're done, you're learning. Maybe checking phone's not great, because checking phone can lead to you're reading something that maybe has you thinking in ways that are very similar to what you're learning, but maybe you get to listen to some music or snack. Maybe you have a coin flip on whether you get to eat a cookie after this thing. Like, you literally use the possibility of a cookie. The cookie is going to be a different type of experience, but it's going to create a ton of dopamine. And this coin flip makes it so that your cookie trick doesn't go away. Like, you can keep doing this day after day because you made it. You should flip 2 coins though, 2 coins, and if they both hit, you get it. Right? 2 coins for the 25% chance. May I ask a question related to politics? Sure. You know, there's not many people here, so we could go. What's my perspective on the situation going on in Iran, out of curiosity? I don't know almost a thing about, I don't know a single thing about this situation, actually, at all. so I can't really give any perspective on it. At this point, I'm just going to assume. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. You know what? I would have to learn more about this. Chances are I'm not going to trust the U.S. administration on whatever facts they're saying about it at all. I think they've lost their privilege of me trusting them on almost anything at this point. And yeah, I think I'll just put it that way. You got to study up before you become president. True. Except I would not want to be president. I think that would be a... that's a little too much. That's a little too much. Maybe too much responsibility. Also, there's a lot of skills that, you know, hopefully I can build these skills over time, but I don't think I'm ever going to be president level in these types of skills. Like a lot of the social skills that are required to like canvas, maybe not canvas is the word, but to campaign, like the skills to like be able to walk into any subpopulation in the US and be a charismatic person. I don't know. That seems really tough. That seems really, really hard. And like to actually, yeah, I'm too introverted for that. Like that's terrifying for me. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't even think I want to get close to that. The other thing about politics is I see it as corrupting in a lot of cases. So I would want to be very careful about that as well. Like the ideal situation would be that I am friends with the president and I am good enough friends that I can give my negative pushback and for that not to corrupt me, like for that not to make me, you know, start changing the type of things I think and say. So, but that's tough. Maybe I don't even want that. Maybe that's too much unconscious influence over my thoughts. You know, maybe I got to be a lone entity. Well, yeah, we'll have to see. But I think politics is probably not going to be the safest space for a while. Okay, we got target supplementation. Action, consult MD. So what we got? Targeted supplementation. I see. So we're consulting a doctor for alpha GPC, a certain amount, 30 to 60 minutes prior to a cognitive task, increases bioavailable choline for acetylcholine synthesis. Okay. Alpha GPC, what's going on there? What are we buying? Oh my gosh, it's just a thing. It's just a thing people can buy. All right. L-tyrosine, I've seen this one used. Precursors for... Okay, so like when we go to like Gorilla Mind, we go to More Plates, More Dates' shop. And we go to brand, we go to shop, we go to shop for nootropics. Is that what this all falls under? Health and wellness? No, we want nootropics. We want Mind Rush? I don't know. Let's just go nootropics. We don't want anything with caffeine here. We're just... Actually, maybe we should just check the caffeine ones. Are we getting any L-tyrosine here? No? Where do we get the... Mind Respawn, Mind Rush, Shroom, Mind Calm. Oh, this is a lot. L-tyrosine, here we go. We got the L-tyrosine. Do we get the other one? Alpha GPC? Alpha GPC, 50%. And what's the amount? 300 to 600 milligrams. Man, the reason why I went to Gorilla Mind here is because Derek from More Plates, More Dates is usually very focused on getting the efficacious dose of something. So I would expect that his... Well, okay, he's going crazy on the L-tyrosine here. Maybe that's a little higher than you need it, but usually the concern is when you get these types of supplements, they have the type of ingredient that you want, but they have very little of it. Like they're just putting it in there to be able to say it's in there. But man, this thing is a lot though. Crazy. Which one? What's this for? Amplified focus. Does this have caffeine? I'm guessing it's... I don't know. Yeah, we're talking energy, I think. Energy without a crash, though. What does that mean? Is aggressively dosed turnkey gaming formula designed for amplified focus, clean energy, elevated mental clarity, and enhanced reaction time. Oh my gosh. So clean energy, is that not caffeine? Oh, no. Oh, I see. Most gaming esports formulas are literally flavored caffeine powder with pixie dusted antioxidants and amino acids. Not us. Per max dose, we got L-tyrosine, we got NOOLVL, alpha GPC. It would be funny if we just throw this into Gemini, but I don't know what kind of thing I'm going to ask right now. For a comprehensive supplement breakdown, check out this article. Oh my gosh. It's too huge. I mean, these pictures are probably a little bit ago, but... Oh no, I'm getting too close to the manosphere, even just by being here. What was that one? This is... The issue I have with these nootropics is they're just too expensive. Sustain mental clarity. I'm guessing this also has the what we just talked about. Yeah, L-tyrosine and alpha GPC without a ton of other stuff. And then this is just shroom stuff, and I don't know what Mind Calm. Cortisol and stress modulator. What are we going to have here? Okay, we might want to hold on to that one just because we might get to it for the recovery and reset. All right. You got to study. Okay. Does your document discuss personality transformation methods? Ooh. I didn't know that what are personality transformation methods? Is the process of intentionally shifting your core ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving, and it's scientifically possible through sustained effort, new habits, and changing your environment, allowing individuals to become more outgoing, organized, or calm by consistently acting like the person they want to be, often with significant shifts seen in months with targeted interventions like therapy or self-practice. Yeah, but I guess technically this is like kind of the thesis of our entire document. And whether or not we call this personality or identity or whatnot, we can get to that. Identify desired traits. Yeah, we do know, though, that, what did we see? It was like 25% of people can change their personality traits significantly. Oh, to my understanding, Jordan Peterson discusses that in his lecture series. I think Jordan Peterson might have even been more dismal about the possibility of changing your personality significantly. Like, he talked about how it was pretty much set by the age of 2, your baseline temperament. Though he did mention, he would mention that you can change it slightly. So, yeah, we'll have to go deeper into the personality training stuff and whether or not, like, you can significantly, make a change, or if it's like, literally the possibility of, like, you have a 1/4% chance, or 1 in 4 chance of actually having some meaningful change. I don't know. We'll have to follow up. We'll have to do a full personality day or something like that. We'll have to do the work. But yeah, that's definitely in the cards. We gotta look to that. I do. It's been a while since I've watched that Jordan Peterson lecture series, or I think he's done 2. He's posted 2 of them or 3 of them. I don't know. I watched them all, but it's been a while. All right, we've got recovery and reset, the rest state, clearing metabolic waste, adenosine, glutamate, replenishing neurotransmitters, and lowering cortisol. Primary targets, we got GABA, serotonin, adenosine clearance. All right, NSDR, so a 10 to 20 minute audio guide immediately after a 90-minute work bout or when energy dips in the afternoon. A state of deep relaxation that mimics the restorative properties of slow wave sleep. It clears adenosine, reduces cortisol, and increases dopamine receptor availability. All right, viewing sunset. View outside light for 10 to 20 minutes around sunset. Melatonin timing, viewing low solar angle light in the evening signals the suprachiasmatic nucleus to decrease sensitivity to light, protecting melatonin production for sleep. Ah, that's cool. Carbohydrate backloading. Save starchy carbs, rice, pasta, potatoes, for the last meal of the day to aid relaxation. Eat proteins, fats earlier for alertness. All right, serotonin synthesis. Ingesting complex carbohydrates increases tryptophan uptake in the brain, which is the precursor to serotonin. This promotes satiety and the transition to sleep. Very cool. Sleep cocktail supplements. We got taken 30 to 60 minutes before sleep. We've got threonate, L-theanine, and apigenin. All right. We got MG, threonate, L-theanine. So we know we've got the L-theanine here. We don't have the other one. Do we have apogene? No, we don't. So I wonder if this is because this isn't actually the sleep. Where's the sleep one? Dream? Is it literally just the dream one? Sigma testosterone. Yeah, what do we got for this one? Oh, we got the L-theanine. Do we get any of the others? I don't think so. Oh, we got literal GABA. Okay, I don't think we've got any of the other ones, right? It was threonate. Do we have the threonate? MG threonate? No, I don't think so. Huh, interesting. Curious if that's not on the radar. Sure it would be though. Increases brain MG, aids GABA. Yeah, I wonder what about just taking the GABA? What's the difference of taking magnesium threonate? For a sleep supplement, what would be the difference between taking magnesium threonate or simply taking GABA? Okay, correct me if I'm mistaken. However, to my understanding, in order to remain psychologically healthy, you need a minimum of 6 hours of sleep as an adult. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure like what the science says in terms of what psychologically healthy means. You know, I see obviously people saying that you want 8 hours, and even anything less than that, you're already losing performance during the day. So yeah, the question would be like, once you start going over under the 6 hour mark, what do you start, like, what is being psychologically unhealthy mean in terms of like the actual signs? But yeah, you want to maximize sleep for sure. Absolutely. Based on your previous questions about the blood-brain barrier and glutamate toxicity, this is the perfect time to make this distinction. The difference comes down to availability and mechanism. Can it get in, and how does it stop the engine? If magnesium threonate is better brake fluid, then GABA, the supplement, is a weight on the brake pedal. Okay. The BBB problem. GABA's fatal flaw. GABA is a large polar molecule. It does not have a dedicated transporter across the blood-brain barrier in healthy adults. So when you swallow a GABA pill, 95% plus of it stays in your body, periphery, and never touches your brain tissue. It cannot get past the astrocyte end feet. It likely works via the vagus nerve in the gut. It binds to receptors in the enteric nervous system, which sends a signal up the vagus nerve to the brainstem saying the body is relaxed. It is a body-up signal. A bottom-up signal. Magnesium threonate is an essential mineral, but standard forms are essentially laxatives that don't absorb well into the brain. The threonate chelate, threonic acid, is a vitamin C metabolite that acts as a carrier. It actively shuttles magnesium across the blood-brain barrier. It physically increases magnesium concentrations inside the brain tissue. It is a top-down intervention. Okay. So magnesium threonate, the NMDA plug modulating glutamate. Magnesium does not put you to sleep. It prevents you from being awake. GABA is a direct inhibitory signal. This makes the neuron super negative. It physically cannot fire no matter how much glutamate is screaming at it. It is a sedative. It shuts the system down by force. Wow. The verdict for sleep. Take magnesium threonate if your sleep problem is mental. You lie awake thinking, ruminating, or feeling wired but tired. Take GABA if your sleep problem is physical. You feel restless, tense, or your heart won't drop. Though honestly, L-theanine or glycine might be better choices here as they cross the blood-brain barrier better than GABA does. Okay. Interesting. Okay, what do we got? Social and salience, the bonding state, enhancing trust, reframing friction, and modulating dopamine via social pathways. Primary targets, oxytocin and endogenous opioids. Shared eye contact and shared attention. What do you dream about out of curiosity? That's a good question. I'm not in a position where I remember almost any of my dreams. I cannot think of a single dream now that I remember from it would have to be from like literally last night, but I don't know if there was. I know there was a dream. When I woke up, I remembered a dream, but I don't have it now. I think it's gone. At some point, I would like to get back into the whole like lucid dreaming stuff where you try to remember your dreams more, or you build the habit of trying to remember your dream when you wake up. The issue is though, like when I really got into that stuff, I was waking up multiple times in the night and I was writing in a dream journal. I don't even know if that's healthy. Like I think that's actually messing with my sleep if I'm waking up just to write dreams down in the middle of the night. So I think but I think that's fine. I think if I were to wake up in the middle of the night, I think just registering that I remember the dream and then going back to bed knowing that I'm probably going to forget the dream, I think that's fine. I think I'm still building the muscle. Ideally, I wake up and I could just more effectively remember a dream. So maybe it's more of in the morning I'll write down anything that I remember, but there's no writing to be done in the middle of the night because I think that can hurt your deep sleep. All right. In meetings or social settings, prioritize direct eye contact and shared narrative, listening to stories to build the chemical glue of the team. Direct eye contact and shared focus on an external object / story synchronize neural states and release oxytocin, which modulates VTA dopamine release, making social interaction rewarding. Wow. So for someone that's, I guess, socially awkward and doesn't like eye contact, if you wanted to make social situations more engaging, literally, obviously it's going to be terrifying first, but you know, trying to share that eye contact is literally like a, you know, you're gaming your own system, and it might make the whole situation much more palatable. Okay, effort dopamine reassociation. When you feel the agitation of starting work, norepinephrine, mentally label it as energy mobilization rather than stress. So, yeah, this is a huge deal. This is just the framing idea that we can leverage at a bunch of different levels of abstraction. And it goes hand in hand with mindfulness, where we start noticing that certain emotions and certain bottom-up signals don't necessarily mean negative things. Subjective reward, dopamine release is partially under subjective control. Consciously telling yourself this friction is good during hard work can release dopamine during the effort rather than just at the end. Right, so you're getting the payoff while you're going. All right, pro-social spending / action. Engage in small acts of non-transactional help. This broadens the reward network beyond self-interest, reducing isolation-induced stress. So using resources to help others, pro-social behavior, engages the midbrain subgenual anterior cingulate cortex pathway, modulating how the brain encodes prediction errors and rewards. So I guess this is just you're building a yeah, you're just kind of changing your brain by you know, how would I describe this? This one seems like different, where like you're literally just directing the way that your brain behaves over time by like setting expectations. Like this is like almost a top-down type of change. You're trying to change the types of predictions or priors that your brain's going to be leveraging in its usual processing. May I ask a question related to theoretical physics? Yes, but I don't know if I'm going to be equipped to answer this one. Okay, I need to know. Okay, we can't continue, so are there any more? And while we're waiting, let's get another one of these videos. All right, healthy versus unhealthy sense restraint. What to do if I have no wise friends. How to avoid over-reliance on technique in meditation. This is actually probably good for us to watch right now. When things start stopping in Vipassana practice, deepening access concentration. Yeah, I think this is the one that we want to go into. What's my perspective on Lee Smolin's theory of cosmological natural selection? Proposes that universes reproduce with new universes forming inside black holes, and natural selection favors those parameters like physical constants that allow for more black holes, thus producing more offspring universes and eventually life. Huh. Well, I think it's like elegant. Like I think the elegant part of this is the use of natural selection here. Like you would not be able to do this first thing without the natural selection. So it's nice that he is leveraging the natural selection. I mean, the only issue here is that we don't have the proof to you know, actually prove this first part, which is like a huge deal. But it's like a cool theory. That's why it's a theory. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe there's evidence contrary to this. Like maybe there's stuff that already contradicts this, but I mean, it sounds cool. certainly. And I like its use of natural selection, where there is an effect over time, and but like once again, evolution doesn't have a direction, so we have to be careful about this, and eventually life, like it's not that yeah, it's not that it's purposely getting to a point where life should exist, right? So that's the only issue here, though, is that this almost makes it seem like why would natural selection favor the parameters that allow for more black holes and produce more offspring? That's, you know what, that's the issue that I'm gonna have with natural selection, where the thing that's necessary for natural selection is a constraint. So it can't just be directed towards something, and really going towards something is not like that's not the way we should ever think about evolution. It's always simply going, it's just happening, and then there's constraints that are kind of affecting that direction. So I'm curious what the constraint is. Universes that create more black holes produce more offspring, increasing their prevalence in the multiverse. All right, so I think that answers that question. This is the constraint, pretty much. It's just whatever is producing more offspring. This is like there's almost no constraint here except for whatever produces more offspring. So there's not really that much of a sophisticated evolution happening. But yeah, for getting to life, like I don't, as long as, unless life actually makes it more likely that more black holes are born than which are necessary for complexity in life. Oh, I guess that makes the yeah, that makes sense. So you know what, I think this holds up, because you'd have to have this final piece where it's not just something inherent about life. It's the fact that life requires stars, and stars are necessary for black holes, and so you're going to get many more stars because we need many more black holes, and that just eventually leads to a place that could have life, and it's not that the system's geared towards the life, it's just the life is just a byproduct from all this stuff happening. It's the life stuff isn't even like an adaptation in this case. An adaptation. It's simply a byproduct of the actual evolutionary pressures that are leading to the adaptation of more black holes. So yeah, that checks out. Except unless there's some evidence, a scientist would maybe know that there's evidence against this theory, and I guess we could look it up, but it's probably not that big of a deal. Oh, am I interested in theoretical physics as a subject matter? Like only on paper, in a sense. Like I don't see it as practical until it is, but even when it becomes practical, I don't think that's going to be practical for everyone. It's going to affect people's lives, but I don't know, like I don't know when it's going to be the case that an individual has some power or agency over the new stuff they learn. So it's only cool, like it's only cool if we're just trying to like learn new things, but I'm concerned that the types of things that theoretical physics do find are going to give power to a lot more powerful people, so to people that already have significant amounts of wealth. So it's actually going to probably lead to negative outcomes for the regular not wealthy person, and the only thing that it gives them is just a cool fact to know. So that maybe that's my take. If you want to do world-altering research, study computer science. Wow, thank you for the glaze. I don't believe wealth is a bad thing. I don't believe wealth is a bad thing. Well, this is, I mean, there's a huge conversation to go on to that. I mean, it's not that wealth is a bad thing. It's that it seems like wealth tends to, first of all, aggregate, or it seems to be a weight for more wealth. And the issue in the world is that there's not unlimited wealth. So there's a set amount of wealth. So the issue with wealth is literally that the vast majority of people are going to have significantly less relative wealth, which, you know, you could argue is maybe not a bad thing as long as the absolute wealth goes up. I think a lot of people would disagree with you, but and then the other thing about the negative, you know, the negative downsides of wealth that we're seeing is that it seems like the wealthiest people are engaging in behaviors that are actually leading to negative effects for a vast amount of people, whether that is companies such as, you know, Facebook or Twitter or the AI stuff. Like we're seeing that we're seeing a huge correlation with wealth and business practices that are more focused on wealth than the outcomes of human well-being. And it's been very obvious the types of downsides that these companies have had on regular people, on many regular people. Now mix that in with the fact that we've got things like Palantir and like you know, surveillance coming up and all that. Like, yeah, it's going to be harder and harder to make the argument that wealth is just a good thing inherently. Now, yeah, like obviously we want everyone to be wealthier. We want to build the wealth of third world countries because that seems to increase the well-being of everyone. I would recommend, if you're interested in learning about economics, researching the ideas of the Austrian School of Economics. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm just, you know, we have so much stuff we have to do on this channel for the next few years. I can't be spending it on economics. Yo, Daniel N, what's good? Stango the Mango. What is poppin'? Like, I do feel like, you know, being able to pay my rent and being able to buy my groceries, like I probably have more wealth than I need, you know. So that's one of the reasons why I'm hoping that this channel becomes a outlet for charity at some point. But I think it would be inappropriate to do that before there's more people here. So I will wait on that. I have to pee. Sorry. You're all fine. Go have a good pee. I would do fine with $1 million because all I do is chill. I'm so chill. They call me E.T. Was E.T. chill or was E.T. cold? Because he's an alien. Out of the stratosphere. Out of the stratosphere. Hell yeah. Yeah, like the nice thing about like large sums of money like that is that it gives you security over time, provided that you don't spend it. You know, some people do end up just spending all the money they make, which is not great. But so like I wonder if for a human being who might be impulsive, like it would be best to have like you know, some sort of income that's periodic. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what would be the optimal income for mental health. Oh my gosh. Look at this guy. This guy's as chill as can be. The coolest thing about him is that he's smoking a cigarette. Man, isn't smoking cigarettes is just so cool. All right. What is this? Oh my gosh, we've got, this is an actual 3D printer model. That's just great. He lit that with his finger. Wow. Can he do that? Can he just burn things? Do I believe that ideas related to biology are relevant for the document? It depends. There's a lot of ideas related to biology that are not relevant to the document, and there's a bunch that are relevant. Like, it has to be relevant to, in part one, it's basically, it needs to be relevant towards our conscious experience and how we understand the world. In part two, it needs to be relevant to how we pursue and achieve goals, or a practical taking on what can help us pursue and achieve goals. And then part three, it needs to be practical towards achieving a meaningful life. That's it. If the biology ideas are necessary, then we need to include them. But if they're not, then we don't. I don't know. Never watched ET. Yeah, I didn't watch ET either. I felt like it was too long ago, and as a kid, no one forced me to watch it. All right, is this relevant for the document? I've been thinking about this recently. What is Dennis Noble's theory of biological relativity? Dance to the tune of life, biological relativity. Posits there's no single privileged level of causation in biology, challenging reductionism by showing that higher levels, organism, environment, influence lower levels, genes, molecules, in a downward causation, creating complex multi-scale networks where cause and effect are circular, not just bottom up. It advocates for a holistic, integrated view, extending physical relativity to understand how genes, cells, and organisms interact dynamically, moving beyond a gene-centric focus to explain life's complexity and evolution. I think this is cool. Like, I think the main thing that this is getting at is really just a view of nature and nurture as affecting each other, in a sense, and not just a nurture view. I'm sorry, a nature view. But if we're talking about like actually causation of biology, then we do need to just go to the lowest view, and that would be like subatomic particles. But like that's not interesting when we're talking about actual biology. Usually going down to the lowest physical space isn't that useful. So yeah, if we're not having that discussion, like determinism at the lowest physical level, then yeah, I would say that yeah, when we're dealing with concepts of biology, then it would make sense to not necessarily just focus on determinism at the level of the molecules or the genes or whatnot, and view the holistic picture of what types of top-down processes are affecting the chemicals underneath. So I think that's fine. Multi-scale networks are seen complex networks where processes occur simultaneously at different scales. Yep, absolutely. Downward causation, higher levels constrain and control lower level. Yeah, I mean, it's just at one perspective here. You could go in both directions. Now, if we're having a discussion about physics, then we have to go to the low level, because it is just the low level stuff. All right. I have peen. Hell yeah. Congratulations. Was it a good pee? That's the question. I can't believe they removed Podfriend, man. It used to be my go-to emote for new channels, old channels, anything. Yeah, I think that's how you showed up on this channel. I think you probably opened with the Podfriend. Uploaded on 7TV, brother. Yeah, but not everyone has it. We already have it here. They don't deserve it. So are we not allowed to use Podfriend in our channels emotes if we were to get the affiliate? I'm just gonna do another Shermadink if that's all right. I'm confused. Do you believe that downward causation is possible or no? Well, it depends what we mean by possible. we're dealing with a conceptual issue here. It's not a physical issue. You know, when we're talking about whether or not, what would be a good analogy here? What would be a good analogy? Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as we could say, like, am I affecting this stream, or is this stream affecting me? Like, you know, I'm saying the things I'm doing because of this stream, but the stream exists because I'm speaking and saying things. So both things can happen conceptually, where it's just a different a direction that we're talking in, a different perspective that we take on that. It wouldn't be a fact about the physical universe. You know, if we're talking about like the physical world, the truth of the physical world, then we're just dealing with the lowest level things that we can talk about, which I think are like just subatomic particles, and I don't know what other else we can talk about, energy, or is that, I don't know enough about physics, but when we're talking about like different systems in biology at different levels of abstraction, we're just dealing with different concepts that we're using to make sense of a bunch of subatomic particles and movement and energy and stuff like that. So it would be weird to say that that's downward causation. Like I don't know what is that even implying? Downward causation. There is just causation at the lowest physical level, but when we interpret systems, we can interpret a system as affecting itself at different levels of abstraction, downward and upward. Okay, we can't use Podfriend anywhere else apart from here unless the streamer has added it. Right. I'm just wondering if, like, could we add it to the stream proper so that we wouldn't have even needed 7-zip. So I guess pragmatically it wouldn't change anything, but but at least someone can come in here and say Podfriend, and actually no, I guess that would be the same thing. Actually, wait, can't you take, if you is it possible to use a emote from another streamer's from another streamer anywhere if you pay money or something to Twitch? Because then we just need someone to get Podfriend, and everyone, provided we're paying for that thing, can use it anywhere. You could draw it with AI, for example, and upload it, I suppose, if affiliate. Oh, okay, so I couldn't just use the same picture. I'd have to make a new one. To my understanding, downward causation is the idea that a whole system can influence parts of itself. Yeah, like, once again, like, that's totally fine. But we just need to be clear about what we mean by, like, causation here. Like as I said, like, the stream is technically downward causation affecting me, as I am upwards causation affecting the stream. But, you know, it's like, yeah, we certainly should talk about how like higher level abstractions such as you know, consciousness affects the expression of genes. Like, that would be cool. That would be a nice thing to do. Certainly the thoughts that we're thinking about right now are actually affecting the expression of genes in the moment. That's just how epigenetics works. You know, the experiences we're having, the emotions that we're experiencing, the you know, the dopamine that's being released, all this stuff. Oh man, what did I just do? There we go. Yeah. But I don't think people are upset about this type of thing. You know, I don't think people really. I think all the like the contemporary scientists or neuroscientists that I've been reading, and scientists that I've been reading, they don't have to say this. It's just kind of assumed, or it's implicit in what they're saying, that yeah, we can explain these different systems in either direction. But we're not going to make a claim about some type of you know, transcendent property of downward causation or something like that. All right, you can use sub emotes anywhere. Oh yeah, that's elite. What is that? That is Daniel 52 cheers. Nice. Very nice. What is it? What is in the mug? All right, we're at 2 hours and a half. I might need to call it so that I can chill before. Actually, we'll end on this note. How to avoid over-reliance on technique and meditation.
Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Beth, here to help you fulfill your potential.
Oh, we did get a second menu. The 85% rule. We're going to just keep running this. I'm going to keep asking for more until it stops giving me stuff. Yes. Okay. Well, we'll just continue with that tomorrow. It's called Pepsi. Whiskey and Pepsi. Yo, nice. I was into whiskey and club soda. That was my quarantine drink of choice. All right, so to clarify, you're saying that downward causation exists and so does upward causation, however, depends on the level of abstraction. No, I'm saying that I'm not one to say that things like exist in a way that like gives them a ontological status. Like I'm saying that we can talk about concepts in any of these directions, you know, but that's not to say like I wouldn't want to harp on the fact that we're saying that downward causation exists or not. Like that would be an unnecessary or perhaps even inappropriate thing to do, because it's like, you know, it's trying to imply something. I think that I don't want to imply. I think I would rather just say like, yeah, like the, you know, processes at higher levels of abstraction we could talk about as affecting lower processes at lower levels of abstraction, which we do all the time, you know, especially when we're talking about the brain. You know, we talk about how emotion affects dopamine release. That's in theory, that's a higher abstraction thing affecting a lower abstraction thing. But I'm not going to try to say like, okay, that means that downward causation exists. I don't think that would be necessary. I don't know. I'm a little hesitant. I don't know what the guy tries to. I don't know if he's trying to sneak anything in. I don't know what. I haven't read the book, so I don't know what he's. Well, you know what? No, he called it a realism, right? Didn't he say that? It's something realism. So when you start using words like realism, now I'm thinking like you're trying to make a statement about the, you know, about some philosophically true thing, and you know that's got my guards up, because at the end of the day, I think that's why I keep going to the pragmatist. Like being a normative pragmatist is where you get out of being an idealist or a realist or a physicalist. Like once you get to the linguistic philosophy section, you know, of the library, you've reached endgame. I'll have to try that. Ontological parsimony. Oh, is that the word here? I think, yeah, we've looked up parsimony 5 times and I keep forgetting it. Is a philosophical principle advocating that simpler theories, which posit the fewest types of entities, like objects, properties, or forces, necessary, are generally preferable and more likely to be true. So it's not quite this, because, you know, I mean, it's kind of like this. Like in theory, you know, we're trying to go for fewer types of entities. But in a certain way, like when you're a pragmatist, you're actually accepting that there's many ways that we could talk about all these things. So there, you know, you're actually open to many more ways of talking about things. So it's like a simple theory that leads to a bunch of theories, and many of those theories could be true or false depending on the rules that we follow. Which, you know, in science, it's like the rules of empirical science and logic and whatnot. And the rules of norms that already exist. You know, it's not a scientific fact that matter means something. It's just that we are pretty locked in on matter meaning something pretty, you know, pretty clearly, or something concrete. It's a guideline for metaphysical and scientific explanation, suggesting we shouldn't multiply entities beyond necessity. Yeah, I think for theories, though, this is a good rule of thumb. You don't want to have a thing where it's like, okay, we've got 11 rules for why about energy in the universe. We don't want to make sense of consciousness using these are the five postulates of consciousness. Like, that's not the way to go here. But that isn't to say that there should be one postulate of consciousness. It's just that, we should just explain using what we can and what we're allowed to use, which, as far as I can tell, it's just using either physical science to see how it emerges, or we literally leverage the space of just conceptual norms to talk about what people intuit about their conscious experience. All right, so to clarify, you believe that downward causality is one way to conceptualize how systems operate. However, neither upward causality nor downward causality are transcendent properties of the universe. Absolutely, that's it. That's 100% it. Very well said. So that, like, I always try to focus on how we should talk about things. Like, that's kind of the linguistic pragmatist way to go. It's like, how should we, or can we, or ought we talk about things? And always the thing to pay attention to is the fact that when I say something, each person is going to infer something unique from it. So what I'm concerned about is saying something that's going to result in disparity of inference, or perhaps a disconnect between what I understand about what I'm saying and what other people understand about what I'm saying. So the way I can get away from that is by being precise in what I say, and like literally saying more things and using, very specific examples and descriptors and whatnot. Like that helps me, that helps me communicate something more clearly, because it lessens the chance for error when someone, quote unquote error, when someone hears it. Now, once again, we all interpret these things, we all infer these things differently, but we arrive at pragmatically similar understandings, and I'm just trying to make those understandings be even more pragmatically similar than if I were to say something ambiguous or something that I think implies something completely different. So that's why I'm like, when we start talking about these like ontological tenets of realism and idealism, we have to be very careful, because people have like a ton of different ways of thinking about those terms, and so we have to be very precise and careful. All right, let's get to it.
In meditation. As most of you know, I don't have just one method that I teach to everybody, like one size fits all. Instead, I much prefer to teach people one-on-one. And the reason is that you're all different. So please use these videos as a guideline, and if there's anything that isn't quite working for you or anything that doesn't quite fit, then be in touch and I'll be more than happy to discuss those things with you one-on-one. Today's video is about a little tangle we can sometimes get ourselves into in the meditation practice, where we become over-concerned with the details of the meditation technique.
Perhaps you might even, use Gemini to come up with a whole menu of different techniques, hyper-focused on what the techniques will do for you. So perhaps I've already failed here.
Now, what this might look like, for example, is we're practicing mindfulness of breathing, and rather than just enjoying being with the natural breath, we find ourselves over-concerned with questions like, but should I focus on the breath like this or like that? Should I focus here or there? Should I focus near or far? Should it be a big breath or a small breath?
Is this about glutamating? That's a good question. Does meditation lead to changes in glutamate release? I think so. I think meditation is a way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which leads to calming you down, and it leads to lowering your heart rate, and it leads to digestion, and the downstream effects of that would be a change in how much glutamate is. So actually, you know what? No. This is not about glutamating, because I think glutamating would be, we would describe glutamating as an increase in glutamate, and increases in glutamate would come from activity, like would come from high intensity, high attentional, focused engagements. And it's not, you know, I know we're saying glutamating, but you know, when we're really focused, you know, that requires energy. And glutamate, what is glutamate? That's the that's literally like excitatory signals. It's literally the signals of information going through your brain. So when you're focused and when you're excited, you know, you can imagine that your brain's firing a lot. And yeah, there could be there's buildups of glutamate as your neurons are firing. And then we talked about the janitors, the astrocytes, the glial cells, the astrocyte glial cells. They're constantly cleaning up the glutamate. So they're kind of a buzzkill. They're kind of getting rid of glutamate. However, if those didn't get rid of the glutamate, then we couldn't keep glutamating. So that's another thing. So actually, astrocytes are pretty pro glutamating, all things considered. You could say that meditation is actually good for future glutamating. You could say that, you know, like when you meditate, you're actually you're affecting a lot of things that are like freeing up resources, and you're actually getting your brain ready for some good glutamating to come. So yeah, you know what? We're back on the map. Meditations, it's for glutamating. But no scientist would like me talking about this stuff in the way that I just did at all, for sure.
If we're practicing 4 elements meditation, it might show up as, but should I focus on this element for longer, or this element? Should I focus here in the body or there in the body, near or far, like this or like that? When we find ourselves overcomplicating the practice in this way, we've become over-concerned with the details of the meditation technique. Now, I've got a lot to say about meditation techniques, and of course, technique has its place in our practice. But if we take a broad view of our...
You know what's kind of crazy? I was wondering, like, she's probably not looking at a... what are these things called? She's not looking at the teleprompter. So this looks like it's probably off the dome, unless she's got a teleprompter outside. But I think this is off the dome, which is really impressive.
Our meditation practice, then I would say technique drives not more than about
10%
of our progress. Almost all of our progress in meditation comes not from the details of the technique, but rather from our quality.
Hell yeah, putting those astrocytes to work.
By that I mean, are we content with the meditation object? Are we comfortable? Are we confident? Are we enjoying our meditation object for its own sake, rather than just using it as a means to an end? If we have a beautiful quality of attention with our meditation object, if we're content, if we're comfortable, if we're confident, then our mind is going to want to stay with our meditation object for longer, and our practice will deepen, even if our meditation technique isn't perfect.
So the way I've gone about this, I don't know if this is actually like unhealthy in some way, and perhaps ironically I shouldn't even be double guessing what I'm about to say, but the way I've gone about it is just like when I start, the whole practice is to just not worry about it, to not, you know, to non-judgmentally let it happen. So it's, you know, I'm not focusing on having that type of comfort. Like it's almost like as if I'm apathetic of the comfort. You know, I don't want to feel good or bad about this. You know, we just let it happen, and there's almost trust in just knowing that I'll be fine and it's actually good. Just because I think any practice is probably better than none unless you're, doing a practice that's making you somehow think of something that makes you worse off. But what I know about practices where you're just not, indulging in any specific thoughts, I think that you can only do good by doing the practice. All right, what's going on here? Karl Marx, the type of guy to say glutamation is slave labor. That's a good point. Are we exploiting the astrocytes? That's the real question here. We've got these janitors cleaning up, getting ready for our next glutamation. And yeah, are we paying them? Like, how are they fed? Actually, I guess they are fed somehow, but glutamation is the opium of the masses. Actually, I think you would say that opioids is the opium of the masses. Yes, it's a dictatorship of the proletariat, so it's fine. It kind of is, but that depends. Technically, how would I say this one? Technically, this one is literally run by the people, Like, once again, like, your consciousness is not something that you technically control in the moment. It's actually being affected by your neurons and the glial cells and thus the janitors. So technically, no one janitor is dominating over you, but all of them together are actually dominating over what you think you are. So it's kind of a weird government system. Teaches according to his ability. They're actually making you work, honestly. Like literally the the astrocytes are clearing up glutamate just so that you have to keep working. Like, they're literally making you work. So this is really gone this has gone in the other direction now that I think about it. They're contributing to the revolutionary ideal. Me watching a stand stream. It's all a worker co-op. Yeah, it's a worker co-op. I'm the dictator here. I don't know about that. I think the neurons in I guess throughout your brain is kind of the dictator, but they're also kind of beholden to your body. So your brain and body is kind of the dictator here. As far as we can tell, consciousness is just a manifestation, like a ramification of the processes. I mean, it is the processes, but it's as far as like you can understand it, it's just a byproduct. I am a glutamator, a gluminateer. Glory to the glutamatariat. Yo, that's great. Oh no, you said glutariat. Glutatariat? Astrocytes need to seize the means of production. Yep. You could find that quote. It's legit.
So when we become over concerned with the details of the technique, asking too many questions, too many shoulds, oftentimes it's covering up an underlying defilement. For example, we might have become impatient in the practice. We might be eager to make progress. And by over-fixating on the technique, we imagine that we might get to our goal quicker. Essentially, by over-focusing on the technique, we're covering up our own impatience and craving. It might be that there's fear of losing control in the practice, fear of surrender. And by concerning ourselves much with the technique, we're covering up that underlying defilement of fear of losing control. So by continuing to concern ourselves much with the technique, we're only exacerbating those underlying defilements and we're slowing down our progress further. So if you're in this tangle of being over-concerned, over-involved with the details of the technique, then my challenge to you is choose a very simple technique for a little while. Choose one object, choose one way of being with it. Throw all of the other options out of the window and practice developing a beautiful quality of attention with that one very simple technique. And allow all of the concerns for, is this the perfect technique? Could I be doing it better? Allow all of that tension and tightness and worry to fade away. Practicing being content, comfortable, confident with one simple way of doing things. So that's all I have to say today about over-concern with the technique.
And I feel like that's good advice for almost anything you get into, whether it's like going to the gym and you're, you know, you might be overstressed about having the perfect perfect form for all these different things that you could be doing at the gym, or maybe you're worried about, you know, I guess a better analogy would be like, is my routine perfect? Like, am I doing the right exercise and the right amount of sets and whatnot? And like, you could just, you know, you could say for that type of person, like, hey, if you're just getting in, like, literally just try something simple, something that has an easy form, something that, you know, everyone swears on doing this many reps or something like that, and just see how that goes, see how you feel about it, and then, you know, you'll build confidence also in that space, and slowly you're able to like inch towards more complex routines and whatnot. Man, we're getting swarmed by these best streamer people. Okay. I think I'm gonna hold off on raids until we have like a network of people. I think I'm only gonna want to raid people that I know. Now, that being said, for any of these people that you do want to raid, like, I'm totally down to check them out in general. You know, potentially as you know, networking and whatnot. Onion de Helmst. All right, I think I'm gonna call it there. Have a good rest of the day, everyone. We will begin with more advanced optimization tomorrow, and hopefully I do some work behind the scenes. So see you later.